Hi guys, it's DK Daniels back here, and welcome back to all the folks who have continuously tuned in every single night to read my book Chasing Christmas with me. It's been a great experience, and I've been really enjoying it, and I hope everybody else has been enjoying it too. Um, so yeah, this is our 11th night of Chasing Christmas, and we've made it up to chapter 14. But before I get away reading this, I'm just going to mention a few, you know, Nicky whatever. But anyway, I'm DK Daniels. I'm a YA LGBTQ author who writes LGBTQI fiction. And we're currently reading my Chasing Christmas novel. But yeah, we'll jump straight into the recap and what's coming up while we wait for a few people to turn up, and I'll just post a little hey in the comments there for some people just to get the comments started or whatnot. But yeah, I'll get onto a bit more news and whatnot about this the book now in a minute, but I'll just get this out of the way first. So in the last chapter, Noah, he went in search of Elijah and he found him secretly crying, of course, and the two boys talked, and Noah found out for himself that Elijah is really gay. So with this knowledge, Noah tries to cheer Elijah up so that they could go back to the restaurant and, mingle with the group and, kind of spirits, I suppose you could say. Now, while this moment is sweet and endearing, Noah ends up catching sight of the two older teenagers that had chased him earlier on in the book, and this only sets about, a chain reaction of panic and then eventually some fighting when the teenagers eventually get back to warn the other boys that these other boys are also in the group. In the mall. And of course, that just snowballs from there when one of the older boys end up taking Elijah as a hostage. And coming up now in this particular chapter, Noah ends up hobbling back to the main street, of course, and eventually he comes across the boys that had split up, and that's how they ended up like that out on the street. So his little cousin had also found his way safely from the garage where he had stowed him, and he was glad to see him, of course, safe and sound and whatnot. But Elijah is gone, so he's kind of a bit crestfallen about that. But eventually Noah gives the bad news after Lucas notices that Elijah is missing, and then the kids get to discussing what they could do to save Elijah, and Lucas ends up, concluding the discussion with an act of self-sacrifice, I suppose you could say. There's that. Just out of curiosity, I know there's a bit now, my boyfriend actually pointed it out last night, that there's a bit of a delay with the live stream of about 50 seconds to a minute. So I guess I'll have to slow down if I'm asking some questions. But even if I ask a question and I've already moved on, don't be afraid to drop it in the chat. I'll still try and answer it when I see it. But yeah, I'm just only realizing that now. But anyway, with that out of the way, let me know what you would do if your crush and you were 14 again. What would you do if your crush was taken hostage? This seemed like the most stoic of moments for me, that he'd go rescue them. But of course, sometimes it doesn't always work out like that. So I remember another option for me would be like literally stand there and have a meltdown. So I'm not too exactly sure what other people would do, but I'd be just kind of curious to see what other people would do with the said knowledge. But anyway, I'll mention this now. The folks who had signed up to my mailing list to get 3 signed copies of Chasing Christmas, the first editions of them at that. Um, that has officially closed. So I'm sorry to anybody who hasn't um, been able to, you know, win the luck on getting these first edition books. But I have reached out to the winners, and I'm just waiting back for confirmation and stuff that whatnot. But yeah, don't be too sad. I have other books and other giveaways coming soon, so there's a plausibility that you can get in on all that action. So all you have to do is basically be on my mailing list. Um, I'll be giving away a short story, a Christmas short story, coming now in about a week or two, about a father who's bereaving for his dead husband, and he comes across this really cute doctor, and yeah, it's going to be cool. I can't wait to share it with you all. It'll only be available to people on Patreon and also my mailing list. So yeah, make sure you're signed up if you want to receive that free downloadable short story. But yeah, apart from that, I decided I'll still wait for a few minutes to make sure everybody else is kind of filtered in. But yeah, as you might have been able to see, I kind of got a haircut. It's still not styled or anything, but it's a lot shorter than what it was the last 2 or 3 weeks. um, I can't remember the last time I actually had a haircut, but yeah, it's a little bit shorter, and I'm happy with it. Yeah. We also managed to go see the film A Boy Called Christmas today with my boyfriend. It was actually a pretty good film. I really liked the mouse, and my boyfriend really liked the mouse, who's sitting just outside of camera there. He's just, yeah, he's a bit shy, but he's, yeah, I hear, I'll introduce him. How's it going? Yeah, there you go.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Oh,
yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. My book ready.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry. Okay. But anyway, yeah, we went to see the film A Boy Called Christmas. Yes. Yes, honey. Okay. A Boy Called Christmas, and I had previously read the novel, but it's a cute little novel. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you go see it. It's kind of cute little family film. But Maggie Smith is in it, so she's kind of usually always awesome in everything that she is in. But yeah, yeah. So while we're waiting for another minute or two, I decided I'd go back and actually mention. I remember a couple of days ago I was mentioning soundtracks for my books and everything. And I thought I'd bring up the couple of songs that I have in Chasing Christmas that I had assigned as an official soundtrack a couple of years ago. If you haven't actually heard them, you can actually go into the playlists on my channel here, and you can listen to them after the live stream. It might put you in a bit of a Christmassy spirit. But yeah, I picked these songs because while I was writing it, these songs were probably the most, I guess, the ones that stuck out to me the most and that I played the most while I was writing some scenes. Sometimes, as a little bit of a cheat to kind of feel the moment, I end up playing music to kind of get in the zone. And these songs were played probably a couple of hundred times for a particular scene that when I was writing it. But yeah, the first one is called Silver Lining, by Lights in Motion. I can't exactly remember what scene this was for, but I do know it was toward the start of the book, around where Elijah, was introduced. Like, although it was kind of sad and, Elijah turning up, it was still kind of a bit of a silver lining to Noah that his crush gets to stay with him for Christmas. But yeah, the next song would be Aperture by Sleeping at Last. This song was played when the family were arriving and stuff like that. And also a quick second after that one, the song Snow by Sleeping at Last as well was really really helpful when I was writing the scene where all the family are all together in the dining room or in the kitchen after they've had the boys have had the snowball fight outside in the backyard. But yeah, it's a really kind of homely, warm kind of song. But yeah, after that, then you have the song "What Christmas Means to Me" by CeeLo Green, I think it is. I probably botched that name, but yeah, it's a real upbeat pop Christmassy song, and I thought that was perfect for a snowball fight scene. So I listened to that on repeat about 50 times, and it ended up making it into the soundtrack while I was writing that scene. But yeah. Then we have the song "Rescuing Asher," which is from Trevor Morris, and it's also featured in the movie London Has Fallen. But I really liked the kind of the tense vibe that it gave off, and it really served as inspiration for all the chase scenes, especially at the start of the book where the boys get their first chase off the bullies, Jesse Tillman and whatnot. And then also the stairwell scene, which we just read there, where it was all kind of tense and he was, escaping. But yeah, that's if you read it, if you read the book and you listen to the sound, you could probably say, "Oh, yeah, that could probably go with that scene." I think it, I think it does go with the scene, so it's kind of cool. And then, of course, the last song that I picked is a song called "This Christmas" by one of our favorite bands. This we've went to see them live as well. So, but if you've never heard of them, they're an Irish indie pop group. You should definitely check them out. They release some really awesome music. But yeah, I ended up picking this song because it felt very homely and it felt like it was the bow on the present at the end of the book. But yeah, um, they're the main songs that I can still remember off the top of my head that made it into Chasing Christmas. But yeah, okay. I think we could probably start now. I think everybody who's going to filter in has probably filtered in at this rate. So I'll make a start now here on Chasing Christmas. Um, how is everybody's weekend going? By the way, don't be afraid to speak up in the comments, even if you miss the comments or whatnot when the video is live. Do drop a comment in below the actual video when the video goes live. I'd still love to hear how your weekend has been going. But yeah, anyway, we're going on to chapter 14, which is 255 in the book if you have the physical copy of it. But anyway, let's break away with this. Grimacing from the awkward and unwanted twinge and sting in my kneecap, I propped up against a blue mail drop box and made a clanker sound upon impact. Letting out a sharp sigh, I let my head look up toward the sky. I can't believe that I just ran off on him. I'm supposed to be his friend. How am I going to do that now? I don't even have the balls to stand by Elijah when times get tough. Shit. I wanted him to be my boyfriend. I guess that is a bit of a joke now, considering that I just ran off and left him. Ugh, I'm so pissed at myself. I shouldn't have run off. I should have stayed there and taken whatever those guys were going to give me, considering it is all Lucas's fault when I find him. I'm going to strangle the bastard. Sigh. No, I'm not going to choke him. I might give him a black eye, though. One of those is really well deserved after all the trouble he has caused me today. Hunching over, I latched onto the cuff of my pants and I started to drag them upward. Tensing from the delicacy of the pain in my leg, I cautiously rolled my pants to the segment past my knee. Looking down at the sore area, I noticed that my knee was slightly bruised and a collection of fluid had swollen around the kneecap. It really does sting, and I'm a bit hesitant to bend it, just in case the pain shoots off the charts. Resting my weight against the mail drop box, I gently caressed the tender area with the tips of my fingers, and I don't think it is damaged. My kneecap still seems to be in its socket. I began to press against the hard, exterior to find where the worst pressure point is. Starting with the side of the knee, I worked my way into the middle of it when something caught my attention. It sounded like the patter of feet, running steps, people running indeed. People were sprinting, and it seemed more than one person. Nervous, I hobbled forward on my sore leg, creating some agony for me. I didn't want to wait around to find out if it were those bullies. That would make everything worse if they subsequently took me too as a bargaining chip. Though then again, I'm their messenger, right? They can't take me. I hobbled all about 3 or 4 steps before stumbling forward. I know I'm falling. In doing so, I stretch out my arms and reach for the small wall to the side of me, and in doing so, I crumble atop the barrier and into the powdery white shrubbery atop the raised flower bed. Trying desperately to get my footing, I heave myself away from the wall, disturbing again. Then the running ceased, and a voice called. I thought, this is it. I'm done for. I'm dead. I haven't even had sex yet, and I'm going to die a virgin, and without ever learning to drive at that either. Then a mellow, breathless voice called out, only this time it was closer. It sounded familiar. Noah, it said, to which I turned slowly and anticipating who the mysterious yet familiar voice was. Lucas stood a couple of feet away from me, nervously, yet somehow chirpy. How could he be chirpy? Something terrible had happened, and it was all because of him. It's his fault that Elijah is not with us now and that those older boys took him. Then again, I didn't exactly help the cause by fleeing like a coward, feeling a pressure build up in my gut, a flow through every cavity in my body. It sparked a course of action in me. My fingers flooded with odd electricity, and I found myself hobbling toward Lucas. He just stood there, all stupid like, and rambled on energetically, like what had just happened was no big deal. It was, of course, a big deal. You know, if Lucas weren't here, then any of this would not have happened. Feeling an unbearable urge to lash out, I hobbled toward him in resentment. Man, that was so close. I thought you were getting beat up or something, Lucas chided, then broke into a smile. Falling into him, I latched onto him. I clenched my fists tightly with clumps of his jacket in both hands. I gripped so hard that I thought I heard both. I thought I heard the bones in my hands crack and displace with the applied pressure. Why did you throw that snowball? I bawled. My eyes were watering up, more from frustration than anything else. I failed my baby, and that is because Lucas couldn't control himself. They took Elijah because of you, I bitterly cried. I began to jingle Lucas back and forth in my grip, and he didn't try and push me away. He just flopped around and took my pent up rage. I'll never get to tell him that I love him, I began to shout, then caught myself. I shocked myself in the process. The smile had dissipated and turned to confusion at first, but now Lucas looked at me urgently with big, expressive eyes. It is almost as if to say, he is waiting for me to finish and confirm that I am gay. I just practically outed myself, and with that, I shoved him away from me and let go. Everyone remained silent. They didn't say anything. They didn't go off in a heated argument how gays are an abomination or how disgusting it is that I love Elijah. Well, that's it, right? I practically said I love him. I don't think I could fix this even if I wanted to. The news is out. I'm gay, and I like boys. Lucas didn't move. He just dumbly slumped and glanced back at the boys. My thoughts made me think of Ben. I lifted my head a little higher to see that he was in the group. I felt myself relax somewhat when I saw that Ben was okay. They must have completely bypassed him in hiding. It felt good, oddly, because I was able to rescue someone, but not the one I intently wanted to protect. No, Elijah was kidnapped or something like that. Everyone didn't pay attention to my statement that I loved Elijah. Somehow that made me feel safe. It's almost as if they didn't care. They're accepting my fucked up ways. No questions asked, and no horrible glares or questioning eyes in my direction as to why I decided to choose this role for myself. Not that I wished it, it sort of picked me. I didn't suddenly wake up one morning and say, fuck it, I'm going to be gay today. It just happened a long time ago, and I never dealt with it. I have known, I have, sorry, I guess I have known I have been different for a while. I didn't think anybody would care to know the real me, but since they haven't said anything, maybe it's okay to be gay. My emotions got the better of me. A mix of stress, guilt, self pity, and acceptance, coupled with a bit of confusion, made me start to cry without actually understanding why I'm mourning in the first place. The boys began to huddle closer, and so did Lucas, regardless of my sickness. Lucas placed his hand on my right shoulder, and Jack's hand rested on my left. The two twins stood between the two older boys, and everyone ultimately spoke an unspoken message. It's almost as if every one of us were asking someone else to start talking first, though nobody was truly brave enough to do it. That is, until Jack spoke up in a soft sounding voice. I locked eyes with him. He just understood. He's my best friend, and if it wasn't for his support, I don't think I'd be able to make it through such a harsh time. I guess Lucas saw the error of his ways. Jack broke the dreaded silence. We've gotta get him back. Lucas glumly mumbled, yeah. Before reverting back to the quiet he had wrapped himself in, he didn't try to stick out or steal the attention of the group. He must have been thinking carefully about what he was going to say, considering this is all his fault. Somewhere deep down, I think he knows that this is probably his biggest disaster of all. Usually, Lucas would be all over it, denying that he had anything to do with it, but Lucas is just unusually quiet right now. He's not the same, somehow, since I told him they took Elijah. I mean, when Lucas turned up, he seemed to be enthusiastic and thrilled. He got away, but now he's different. As everyone gave the others questioning glances as to what to do, Lucas broke away from the group and sluggishly brushed the build-up of snow off the wall and sat down on it. I'm sorry. I know I'm a fuck-up, Lucas quietly offered. Lucas appeared to be contemplating as he zoned off into the distance, sniffling and thinking to myself as if somehow doing so would restore balance. I tried to get a grip on my emotions. Swiping the wall beside him, I then sat down without giving much thought to it. I glanced up and around at the faces peering down at me. How do we get him back? I asked. I haven't the vaguest idea about how to get him back. Nothing like this has ever happened to me before. I zoned out for a moment and tried to recall what the older boys had said to me. The knowledge is on the tip of my tongue. Jack overrode the topic at hand. Jack said, We take him by force. We take him by force. Duh. Which I guess you can account for something, considering the only thing these boys seem to know is brute force. I don't think I can reason with them. I tried reasoning with them back in the alley, and all it did was to make them even more frustrated with our group. I feel guilty for having said that because if I had hesitated and thought of what I was going to say, then they wouldn't have grabbed Elijah by the hair and shoved his head out through that window. My heart sank thinking about the pain I put him through, and the pain Lucas had brought to this already acknowledged misery. This must be the worst Christmas Elijah has ever experienced. I mean, how unlucky can you get? First, Elijah loses his home. Then he ends up in a stranger's house. He gets insulted twice, I guess, then kidnapped. I mean, if this day were rigged from the get go, I wouldn't have suggested heading to the mall. If I had some sort of magic power that could make me see the future on how the day will turn out, I would have avoided going out entirely so that Elijah would just relax and have a peaceful day. The last thing I wanted for him to experience was this fucked up day. Sigh. Force I can do, Lucas said. Lucas nodded in agreement with what Jack said. He wiped his eyes with the back of his arm, and then a new spark of life erupted into his veins. Lucas seemed to be determined. I think he wanted to mend the screwed up ways he had caused. I think deep down that Lucas wants to do something right for once, amongst all the disasters he has created. I guess since he leaves most problems unassorted, I'd take this as a sorry. I'd take this as a leap of fate on the part of Lucas. Most times Lucas just neglects it and moves on, but Lucas seems genuine somehow. I can see it in his eyes. I think he means well. Noah, did they say anything? Jack asked, snapping out of my awful thoughts with Jack. But Jack's question, I swiveled my head in his direction. A tightness heaved its way up from my stomach into my chest with the result. It ultimately winded me, and I quickly started gasping for air. Between the choking gasps, I began to panic. I raised both my arms in response to the urgent situation happening. I'm not sure what is happening, but it feels like I can't breathe. Propping my hands against my chest and throat, I will for my airways to open and breathe properly. The boys around me panic, and it doesn't help my cause anymore. So sorry. And it doesn't help my cause anymore, so that I'm trying to calm myself down. Before I know it, my tears flood back again and I heave for air. My bottom jaw retracts and contracts uncontrollably with each breath I try to take, and it throbs with every exhale I try to release. Oh God, what do I do if they hurt him? I'd never be able to go home if they hurt him. I'd never forgive myself if they do that. Deciding to try and get the information they told me out into the open, I struggled to get the words from my throat, because it was locked. A death grip on it forbids me from uttering a word in the middle of my hyperventilating. They wanted to trade Elijah for Lucas. Trade me? For what? Lucas reluctantly asked. I think they just want to beat you up, I said. Lucas just rubbed his gloved hands together as if he were contemplating the nervousness emanating from within. If only he could have realized his repercussions earlier, then that would have made things slightly better. If he had thought before he did, he wouldn't be here, and neither would we. He wouldn't have to feel anxious as to what would come next. I think at this point everyone is afraid of what the point of no return is precisely. What could they really do to Elijah? Are they capable of such lewd acts? This is not the 1600s, surely. They won't torture him, right? They're just holding him hostage while we make up our minds to give them Lucas. But what happens if they take Lucas and they still don't hand over Elijah? What happens if it is a trap all along and they had no intention of resolving the conflict? The day was off to a good start when I descended the stairs this morning, but if I had known what was going to happen prior to leaving the house, I would have just crawled up into the cubbyhole under the stairs. Lucas broke in gently and said, "Oh." Lucas's offering was rather dull and not prestigious like his character usually is. Only now he sees his blunders, and the blunderbuss has already fired. Quite the dramatic theatre drapes and the dilemma. I shot Lucas a sympathetic glance. Of course he deserved to be punished. Lucas earned the ability to be left entirely out in the open, to make clear what he had done wrong. Dunno. I couldn't leave him out there for them to pummel him to death. It's crazy to even think of it, but still, he's my cousin, and if Lucas weren't, it would be morally wrong just to let someone else take control of such a situation. We need to try and get in front of the bullies. We need to try and outsmart them, right? There are 6 of us and 2 of them. I don't understand why we ran away from them in the first place. I think it's just common sense that you run away from the menacing creatures. You inevitably feel it in the pit of your stomach telling you to just run for your life and don't look back. Not now or ever. Though that brings me back to the first thought I had all evening, all along. How do we get my baby back? Do you know where they'll be? Jack impatiently asked. It appeared that Jack was already ready to go to war along with me, even if I was kind of refusing to do so. Jack unmistakably saw that this signified a lot to me, and he wasn't going to back down so quickly. I guessed when Jack looked at me and he saw a scared and queer-like boy. I'm not exactly sure what I'm more petrified of: the fact that the only boy I've ever had a crush on has been snatched away from me, or the fact that everyone knows that I'm gay. I thought it would be somehow easier, when you come out. I imagined that I would feel better after I came out of the closet. I have dreamt about it for so long that it has become second nature to me. Only now that I'm really out, I'm not sure. The boys didn't respond the way I was anticipating. I, I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting them to jump out of their seats they lounged in and start a courtroom drama based on my announcement. However, zilch. They just stood there and they didn't even bat their eyes. Then conditions heightened and even became shittier when I had to announce that those 2 boys took Elijah. Then again, maybe this is my calling. Perhaps it's like a trial to prove if I'm worthy of holding out onto such a boy. Possibly I'm being tested. Maybe he's like the princess in some odd story, and I'm the prince. My princess, prince, needs rescuing. It's feasible that this is the whole concept all along. I guess the idea of rushing into battle with a sword or a branch from a tree sounds legendary or noble, to say the least. Then again, I'm no warrior. I'm just a stand in for popularity. Digging the intrepid sponge of my brain, I sieve through all of the useless information until I hear a clear voice in my head flash forward. They said Miller's Crossing, I quivered. Out there is very secluded, Jack said. Jack's manner seemed to have shifted. He seemed unfocused and disconcerted. Could he actually be as worried about Elijah as I am? That would be great. That means that Elijah is likable. But I don't think this is the proper moment to consider how friendly he is, considering he won't be admissible if they do anything to him. For the first time in a couple of minutes, Lucas made his stance on the discussion known. I had somehow completely forgot that he was actually there because he had become so quiet. Maybe tell the adults, Lucas offered softly. Proven that he is already ready to jump-start into motion, Lucas darted his head upward to the twins and energetically said, "Guys, go get help. Go home. Tell the grown-ups." The twins didn't waste any time. Taking Lucas's demand on board, the two identical boys spun and started to sprint away from the circle. I became flustered, worried and anxious. They said they would hurt him if we got grown-ups involved, and with that I shot up off the low wall and called out after him. "No, don't! Wait," I begged. The boys were about to turn off the street, and then they stopped and started back toward the group without any questions asked. "What? Why?" Lucas blurted out. "I guess it would look a bit bizarre not looking for help from adults, but they did say they would hurt him if we got anyone else involved, and I didn't want to take that chance. I didn't want anything to happen to him. Not him, of all people." I tried to rally up all the information in a bundle to present to Lucas why I thought that sending for the adults was a bad idea, but all of it lost its value and it ended up in a stuttering mess, locked away in the deep entrails of my brain vault. All I can remember is that they'd cut him if he didn't turn up on time, or purely if we got our parents involved. They said they would cut or hurt or something if we got the grown-ups. I fretted. My heart is running rampant in my chest at all. I feel like I want to throw up and cry all at the same time. Amongst all of this, I feel like I want to sit down. I mean, my legs feel like they're going to give out any minute. It's like the muscles are trying their very best to keep me standing, and I'm working against them to stay upright. Just about any minute now, I'll fall down like a sack of potatoes. "Hurt him?" Jack questioned. Jack has this quizzical expression on his face as if he is not sure what to believe, the notion I have just spoken. I don't think I could have explained it any better, especially with the way my head is right now. It's like totally screwed up. I feel this is my fault partly. I guess that Lucas and I are to blame for all of the problems that Elijah has encountered today. "That's what they said," I whimpered. My eyes welled up and splotches in my vision appeared as a flow of and splotches in my vision appeared as a flow of blurry tears. The cold pressing against the warmth offering of water made my eyes feel exposed somehow. It's like there was a trench beneath my eyeballs and my tear duct that had somehow opened up and it left me exposed. I felt my throat wallowing in excess mucus and I gave myself a gentle cough to free up the congestion somewhat, and somehow it made me feel for a minute. The thoughts of the situation came flooding back. There is a moment of silence and nobody spoke. Everybody remained silent. A persuasive aura floated about in the air which compelled everyone not to utter a word. I sat down again to favour my sore leg. Then again, after a full minute of silence, awkward glances and sighing, Lucas said, "I'll do it." Not sure if I was following him correctly, I peered over at him and asked, "Do what?" Lucas was looking at something across the street, just fixated on a single object when I shifted my attention out to the road. I looked, not knowing, guessing at what Lucas was presumably talking about. "I'll take the beating. I've been in loads of fights. I figure I can take the beating," Lucas gently broached. Did I hear correctly? Did Lucas just say that he is offering himself up to save Elijah? That is so not in his character, and even if it was, why would he care enough to let himself get punched or possibly kicked? If the idea seemed appealing for the moment, there is no way in hell that I'm letting him even consider it. And what happens if his plan backfired? What would we do if they take him and punch him and they don't give Elijah back? Then that would be the biggest fuck up we would have all have made. Are you insane? I cynically asked. I rose off of the stone wall and practically gave him a sour look. I'm angry at you, but hell, I'm not letting you go through with something like that, I exclaimed. Everyone was quiet for a moment yet again. The street was practically deserted. Not a soul was to be seen. The darkness had begun to descend and the day was becoming night. Then I don't know what to do, Lucas said quietly to himself. Lucas kept his head directed toward his lap as the silent demonstration went on. It's all my fault, Lucas concluded. My cousin stood up and started to pace back and forth for a couple of seconds. A panic had apparently set in, and he was unsure about how to deal with it. But something deep inside me couldn't watch Lucas pacing back and forth, so I stood up and reached out for a hug. In doing so, I blocked his pat and he stopped treading along. I wrapped my arms around Lucas and pulled him into a hug. He just stood, zombie-like, with no emotion being shown on his end. He just stood there and accepted my hug. Then he said, I screw up everything. Following directly after, his chest began to rattle, and then it was accompanied by a muffled cry into the side of my neck as he started to bawl. I wasn't sure if that was the best way to go, considering we all needed to be focused, but considering the guilt Lucas might be carrying, this might be a good thing. I began to rub in a circular motion on his back to try and calm him down, all the while wondering what I am going to say to him. Lucas has never been one for waterworks. I guess I should cut him some slack. Because if he's crying, then he's obviously seen the error of his ways for like the first time ever. A series of ripples ran through his lithe body, and he began to sob a little harder, and I felt compelled to say something. I know, but I still love you regardless. Immediately after I said that, he began to chuckle into my side, and I glanced at the guys who just stood there, expressionless. Breaking the hug with him, I leaned out, and he had this cheerful smirk to him. He wasn't totally feeling better, but he had gotten some of the guilt out of his system. I smiled crookedly back as he rubbed his eyes, free of fresh tears, and took a breath of relief. Guys, I hate to break up the Oscar worthy performance, but maybe we should focus on how to get him back. You know, get him back. Looking from Lucas to Jack, I gave him a coy smile. Yeah, I gently offered. I hadn't realized that I was still teary-eyed, that and with that, I wiped away the evidence. With a nod of agreement, I asked, "What should we do then?" Jack took a moment to decide what he was going to say before finally saying, "I think we need more people." The request seemed a little odd, but I guess Jack did have some reason for the notion. More people means that we'll be able to outnumber them. But then again, I remembered the stories about the castle that had like 20 knights against an army of a couple of thousand and they survived the army. Maybe having a larger group could be a bad thing. It would make it harder for us to sneak up on them and also get a lay of the land. I haven't been to that neck of the woods in a while. It cuts out behind the local park. Not that I spend a lot of time in the woods, but I vaguely remember bits and pieces of when Jack and I used to take shortcuts through there when we were younger. I always hated Miller's Crossing. It has this creepy vibe to it. It's like a large, creepy castle or something once stood on it, but it's been demolished and now a tiny rundown shack has taken its place. Thinking that it would be a good idea to have a backup in case something unforeseen were to happen, where sorry, something were to happen would be logical thinking and more people would be the best idea we could come up with at the moment. How do we go about getting more people? Lucas asked, sniffling. It appeared that he was going to go through with whatever logical statement he had just settled on in his brain. If that meant getting Elijah back, then that would be even better. Then I guess I would genuinely forgive him for getting us into all of this shit. It's possible the only way he could repay us for what he has done. Now, if this is enough to satisfy me, then I hope that when things go down, which I know they will soon enough, that Elijah can forgive me when we try to rescue him. I say try because I'm not sure that anything we could come up with will outsmart these boys. But I shouldn't be thinking this way because if I do, then I'll never rationally believe that a victory is possible. Just to clarify, if a larger group would be a good idea, I asked, are you sure more people is the answer? You can see for miles around from what I remember at Miller's Crossing. The crossing had always been a hollow in the middle of the woods, and no matter what tree line you came out of, there was no way of denying that you would be able to see the person or enemy coming from far off. In this instant, I guess I'm the enemy. Something about Jack changed. He had an idea, and I knew it. When those eyes light up like that and he starts forming row after row of continuous lines across his forehead, it is enough to let me know that he is onto something. But he just hasn't quite got it yet. I liked to watch Jack work. He often work. However, when he didn't have his ideas, they always came to him in bits and pieces. Well, that's how he explained them to me. Jack said they come like pieces of a jigsaw and he has to place them together to see the bigger picture. Just looking at him, I know that he was most definitely onto something. I have a perfect idea, Jack announced, breaking the tense silence. It was at this moment that a single crystal drifted down between us and fell to the ground. Then another, followed by a couple more, then 20, 30, then a couple of thousand snowflakes lazily drifted downward from the black sky. A quiet stillness loomed until Jack broke the wafer tin air. You go on and wait for me by the old storm drain, Jack urgently said as he backed away. I was about to ask what his excellent plan was, but before I could ask, he was already jogging down the street. Where are you going? I called after him, to which he shouted back, to get the plan. What does that mean? I shouted, but he never answered back. Jack must have gotten out of range. I watched as he ran the length of Green Bay Road and disappeared into the distance. Puzzled as I honestly am, I'm not sure where this day is at all going, but I'm petrified at what the conclusion could possibly be. Storm drain? Ben asked with confusion. Glancing at him, I gave him a shrug of my shoulders. His guess was as good as mine. I have no clue what Jack was planning. I thought for a moment as to what Jack would use the storm drain for. It is, after all, a huge pipe that mainly runs from one side of the park to the other. Come to think of it, doesn't that tunnel come out beside Miller's Crossing? Somehow, I can't help but think that Jack is picking up on them. For what it's worth, I guess it is a better idea than I could come up with just now. Uh, Noah, I've got new shoes on, Lucas rhetorically said. Peering over at his grim expression, I gave him a frown. Lucas looked down at his superb high tops, smiled, and then he caught my fixed look. His smile faded. Seriously? Does his shoes qualify in such a predicament when Elijah needs help? He can buy another pair if anything happens to him, but you can't buy another Elijah. The pipe has been out of commission for a couple of years. Actually, I don't think it's ever seen any action. I don't think it has ever been used. Either that or it isn't working properly as to what it was actually built for. I guess giving him some assurance that he is not going down into a sewer would suffice. Relax, I offered. It's not in operation. Well, hardly. It's more of a pipe to stop flooding, though it's never worked as long as I've known about it. Okay, so do we go? Lucas asked, glancing up at me. I nodded my head. I guess we do, I said, shifting my attention back to Lucas for all for the all clear. I was just waiting for his opinion. Maybe the twins should go home, Lucas said. Yeah, that made sense. I guess Lucas's brothers are a lot smaller than us, and they could quickly get in the way. But then again, Jack said we needed numbers, so maybe having them go around would be beneficial. Though I don't want them to get hurt or anything. Ben seems just fine after the runabout that took place in the garage. What? Both boys said in sync with each other. No way, the Siamese boys offered together. You're not making us go home, Adam added. Not sure what to think, I looked up from the twins to Lucas, who seemed a little flustered now. Lucas obviously didn't want them tagging along, but he couldn't really stop them, can he? Yes, you are, Lucas spat. Lucas reached out and latched onto Adam's arm and started guiding him in the direction Jack had run. Not far, only a couple of blocks from here is my house. The orange light protruded from the street lamps, made a stark circle on the white ground, and a fresh batch of snow fell from the sky, gently landing on my jacket and the boys. Lucas's hood had already amassed a nifty number of fine particles. He swept his hand back as he gripped Adam, and the snow fell down the steep slope of the hood to the ground. Ah, that hurts. Let me go, Lucas, Adam whined. The young boy pulled away from his brother in protest. The harder he tugged, the more distance Lucas slid forward on the impressionable snow. We want to go, Ben spoke up. Ben started to burrow his way through his twin and his older brother to make the point. I could swear that any moment I was waiting for Adam's arm to go click, and then Lucas would be in for a whole lot of trouble when he got home. How would Lucas explain that? Breaking his brother's arm? Though at this point I'm contemplating about cutting off the struggle. We have more pressing matters to get on with. It would be dangerous, Lucas reasoned. I do see a point. Lucas is just trying to look out for his little brothers. It's not that hard to figure out, but as per usual, he's rough about it. Lucas thinks he can intimidate people to make them do what he wants them to do. We don't care, the twins called out at the same time. Just then, Adam pushed away from Lucas and he stumbled backward a moment before getting his balance. The two of them exchanged heated glances. At that moment, Lucas broke eye contact with his little brother and stomped down hard with his foot in the snow and groaned to the black sky. A moment later, he dropped his head back and swiveled around in a circle. I have to admit the moment is rather funny when I come to think about it. I can't for the life of me understand why I find it amusing, but something about how the twins had just acted reminded me of Lucas in a way. Please, just go home, Lucas said in defeat. Followed by a sigh, he slumped. Lucas is just trying to do his significant brother bit. Clearly, it's not the best way of going about it, but I guess if it stops someone he cares about from getting hurt, then he has a right to be frustrated. Starting to chuckle at the idea of the two twins being exactly like Lucas, I teasingly offered, remind you of anybody? Lucas pivoted his head at me and said mockingly, "Oh, ha ha." Lucas absently looked from me to the twins. They were giving him little pleading sort of pouty faces, and then, finally, Lucas caved. "Okay, fine. Just don't slow us down or piss yourself," Lucas said. The two twins smiled enthusiastically, and in sync, they both said, "We won't." Okay, so that's the end of 14. Um, I hope you guys have been enjoying this. I probably won't go on much longer because the next chapter, you know what I mean, I'll probably end up reading 2 chapters tomorrow night, so that was more on the lengthy side. But yeah, IDK, I like you can buy another pair of shoes, but you can't buy another. Yeah. I I can't remember exactly where that came from. It's just, you know, I mean, I think it was just my understanding of human life is more important than material things. So I think I was trying to phrase it like that in that retrospect. But yeah, I also liked the part at the, you know, I mean, oh, fine, don't piss yourself. Some we won't, you know. I was definitely trying to, you know, get the kind of the annoying little brother vibe in that moment. But yeah, um, but yeah, I probably won't go on much tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the reading tonight. I'm actually surprised at how quickly we're actually getting through the book. I mean, like, you know, we only literally have like this much worth of the book left. It's barely any of the book left. I thought we'd be forever reading the book, but you know, I mean, in an hour, in evening, we're actually doing quite well. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I hope you guys are enjoying this. It's nice to see you, Terrence, as well. Thanks for turning up again. Um, but yeah, it's probably coming up to an hour now, and you know I don't want to keep people too long. But yeah, this has definitely been fun. I've really been enjoying this. I hope you guys have been enjoying this. I wanted to do something a little bit different, you know, coming up to Christmas, and of course, I got to kind of you know, have a bit of a more of a relationship with my readers, and I hope, you know, it's building a bit of a bond. You know, I want to build a bit of a bond with some of the people who's reading my books, so to show how, you know, appreciative that I am for you sticking with me through all of these, you know, stories and whatnot, and for supporting me as well. But yeah, um, yeah. So anyway, I'll probably call it here now in a few minutes. Like always, don't forget to sign up to my mailing list. I give all the fun deets out there. If you're, you know, I mean, if you ever want like information and whatnot, it's the first place I post pretty much anything with news related to my books and whatnot. To make sure that you get your, you know, that you get the information first, just sign up there. But yeah, that's probably about it. Other than that, I just thought I'd share. You can also follow me. I'm also trying to do a little bit more, you know, um, a little bit more social media things and that and everything, so readers can have a little bit more of like an insider view of just not just my writing but my day-to-day life and stuff like that. So if you are interested in following me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you can follow my DK Daniels there. I try post, you know, I mean, about books that I'm reading, or you know, whether what I'm writing, or you know, just day to day, sometimes general stuff as well. And also, while I'm at it, if you're interested in following me, my travel pursuits or whatever it is with my boyfriend, we do a lot of traveling, mainly in Ireland at the minute, but you could probably have a nosy there as well. It's called Intrepid Irish Explorers. The two of us run the account together. It's on Instagram. Um, you could probably find it if you just type in Intrepid Irish Explorers. I think we're the only people with that actual username. Um, but yeah, yeah, it's really cool. It's, you could probably see why. um, Ireland is so beautiful, and why, as they say, was kind of inspired when I started writing that. That was my first year in 2017 of really, going traveling a lot and, getting into that. And it was kind of our first vacation to ever take, really, as a couple.
First trip on the Wild Atlantic Way, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Wild Atlantic Way. Yeah.
Yeah.
With the Wild Atlantic Way is the longest coastal route in the world at the moment. In Ireland, official coastal route where you can drive from Southern Ireland and Cork and Kinsale all the way up every little peninsula and crag and Kerry and everything, and you go all the way up to it's a town called Muff in Donegal. I know it's a weird name, but that's what it's called. It's called Muff. It's outside a town called Londonderry. But
1,600 miles.
So it's about 1,600 miles,
2,600
and it's
kilometers.
about 2,600 kilometers. But yeah, it's an official road trip. You can actually drive it from start to finish, and a lot of tourists actually drive it. We've actually driven it as well, and it's
4 times.
4 times at this rate, because there's so much to see. But that's where I got a lot of the inspiration for As They Say when I was writing As They Say, and yeah, I have the Wild Atlantic Way to thank for, As They Say, it's inspiration. But yeah, and then of course, you can then go into Northern Ireland then and do the Causey coastal route, and you go around and do like the Giant's Causeway and stuff, and you can come back all the way around to the east. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. So if you're interested in any of that, and like, you can follow me and Damon on Intrepid Irish Explorers if you just want to see like our travel pictures and stuff like that, and some of the places we visit here in Ireland, or probably Europe eventually when lockdowns kind of ease and whatnot. Or if you're more interested in, just me posting pictures or stories on Instagram or Facebook of my writing process, or me just talking about my books and whatnot, you can follow me there as well, DK Daniels. You can find all that information on my link tree. Surely you can. Oh, okay, there you go. Exploders, is it, honey?
Oh shit!
Sorry. Intrepid Irish Exploders. We're exploding things now, aren't we? But yeah, no. But yeah, thanks guys. I really hope you've had a nice evening with me here, and I hope to see you all again tomorrow. So yeah, I'll really appreciate your readings. It's a bit like an advent calendar, a treat every day until Christmas. Not as good as dark chocolate Rolos.
Yes,
Yeah.
Rolos. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
I think you've made a fan. He likes Rolos. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for turning up. It really means a lot, and I hope I see you tomorrow. Have a nice day wherever you are in the world, or evening or night, or yeah. But okay, so guys, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to sign off now and try and get some, relaxation in before I head to bed, and Hamish and Eggsy want to do the same as well, But anyway, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.